So, y'all are probably cracking up looking at this picture right now. I was too. And it's the reason why I have this picture up in particular, because there's this article that I just came across on Newsweek.com that was posted on November 25th. And it says, the rising death rates among white Americans linked to perceived threat to their dominant social status. Uh-oh. They are scared their numbers are falling, and that's probably because they are. I mean, between them low birth rates and them opioids and a horde of other things, it is what it is. I wonder what their numbers actually are, because I highly doubt that they are the number that they claim to be. You know how they like to skew a stat. But let's get into it, because I'm very intrigued just on the title alone. A new public health study released by University of Toronto researchers found that rising mortality rates in white Americans. Now, mind you, this is University of Toronto in Canada, a non-American. Well, when they say white Americans, they're talking about the U.S. This was a research study done in Toronto, Canada. It says, found that rising mortality in white Americans is partly due to perceptions that they are losing social status. The paper titled Growing Sense of Social Status Threat in Concomitant Deaths of Despair Among Whites highlights this population health phenomenon that has been unfolding for the past 2 decades. So you're talking about going back to 1999. Mortality rates seldom rise unless a society is subjected to something disastrous, like a major economic crisis, an infectious disease epidemic, or a war. But there has been an increase in working age mortality rates for just one group in the United States since 1999, and that's non-Hispanic whites. This is a startling finding, said Arjman Siddiqui, lead author of the study. Arjman, an associate professor of epidemiology at the Dalla Lana School of Public Health, went on to say this could be the first time that a widespread population health phenomenon cannot be explained by social or economic status disadvantage, and instead has been driven by a perceived threat to status. The anxiety of whites is coming from a misperception that their dominant status in society is being threatened, which is manifesting in multiple forms of psychological and physiological stress. The stress has resulted in what researchers call deaths of despair. Now, this is something that I have talked about on my channel, but if you are subscribed to Lisa Cabrera, she talks about it quite often on her channel. I won't be surprised if she talks about this story as well. While mortality rates trend higher for whites, the increased causes of death have been due to alcohol consumption, opioid usage, opioid overdoses, and suicides. According to the study, rising chronic diseases, which include hypertension and obesity, also contributed to this trend. Now, it's so crazy because they love to talk about the high obesity rates in the black community, which it is a fairly high number, but you got to think, for the obesity rate to be high in the palm color community is exceedingly higher than ours, because if we are alleged to be 13% of the population and they are the majority, then that means that they have way higher of an obesity rate than we do. Status is a major predictor of health, so our team hypothesized that it was a perception among whites that blacks are economically catching up to them, when in fact, income inequality and other socioeconomic factors continue to affect black Americans more unfavorably. See, and the thing is, they have to try to keep telling themselves that we are catching up to them, and we probably would have been on the same playing field as them, but you know, this is all karma catching up with them right now from what their ancestors did. You know, you have a lot of palm colored people out there that would love to say that they didn't have anything to do with slavery. I said, that's fine. You didn't physically put our ancestors in bondage, but guess what? The dirty deeds of your ancestors are coming back on to bite you in the ass right now. During the presidential election in 2016, Donald Trump's campaign promoted widespread xenophobia. Survey data later revealed that voting for Trump was connected to the fears of white Americans concerned about increased racial diversity within the country and globalization outside of the country. Now, remember how I kept saying how a lot of palm-colored people, they voted for Trump, but they claim not to know? This article and that statement right there just revealed why they really did it. And it further proves what that whole Make America Great Again slogan is. It was blatant as, like, I don't know how many people could not have caught that. Let me read that again. Survey data later revealed that voting for Trump was connected to the fears of white Americans concerned about increased racial diversity within the country and globalization outside of the country. Their fears are from within and abroad. Now, we're just talking about white Americans right here. We're not talking about white people or palm-colored people in other parts of the world. We're just talking about the ones in the U.S. that are fearful of what is going on inside the establishment and what it will happen outside of it as well. Because whatever is affected here, you know is going to be effective out there. With the very real rise in economic instability over the last several decades, we'd expect mortality rates to rise in the most socioeconomically disadvantaged group of all races. But this is not the case. Instead, we're seeing a striking reversal among working-age whites, which seems to be driven principally by anxiety among whites about losing social status to blacks, even in the absence of evidence, which is a newly identified population health phenomenon that requires further research. Now, as you can see, by them using us as the examples as far as a targeted social construct or race, that shows you right there that palm-colored people's main gripe has and will always be with us. While the most negative outcomes in the paper were concentrated in white Americans with high school degrees or less, signs of stress and elevated anxiety leading to a rise in mortality was reported every level of education. I feel absolutely nada about that. As far as I am concerned, like I said, that is karma. And this is only the beginning of their downtrend, as far as I know. 2045 is right around, will be here before they know it. We about to go into 2020, and I think one video that I did, they said in 2022 that the palm-colored population will no longer be the high population in Texas. If y'all didn't know, a lot of people are fleeing California and going to Texas. I'm guessing they're probably trying to keep those numbers up, or maybe the cost of living is whatever. But this is getting real spooky for them. We kept trying to tell them. But I think there's even more to it than what this article has stated. But this will do for right now. But I have a feeling there's way more. But like I said, I wonder what their population numbers actually are. And I'm so glad that this article pointed out the real reason as to why they voted for Trump. It's because of fear of racial diversity. I keep telling people, Jim Crow never left. It was hiding in plain sight. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.